Hey guys, Matt here from DCLblogger.com. This is a well overdue video on a marketplace analysis for Decentraland. I love making these videos. I haven't done them for a while, been busy, and there's been just so much noise in the NFT space. But you know what? It is definitely time for me to do something like this because we haven't done it for a while. So what I'm going to go through is the current price of different lands within Decentraland. We'll take a look at that. We'll look at some recent sales, sales volume for single parcels and also estates. We're also going to look at this graph and see the consistency in volume and how Decentraland is doing today compared to how it's doing previously in terms of the consistency in people buying land. Is the project growing? Is it stagnating? Is it consistent, which is the most important thing for NFTs at the moment? We'll go through some large estates and their prices. I was able to pick up some really good estates over here. There's a few in a row that now I can join up. There's about 87 lands there, which is pretty big, and I'm really proud of that one. I'll go through my plans with that. We'll go through OpenSea volume for different NFTs. We'll go through some of the builder contest entries just very, very slightly, and just to give you a scale of what the parcel sizes will look like in the game. We'll look at mana and how it's doing in on the charts, and if there's any correlation between this small uptrend and any recent sales on the marketplace, land marketplace. I also want to go through a bot that I use, which is really, really cool. And this one pings me every time a NFT is listed for sale that matches my filter. So I'm going to go through this a little bit later. And lastly, we're going to go through Metalith. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that, but a really cool project that's opened up to start providing price index for Decentraland land and just general market metrics. So I've been in discussion with these guys, and I think they're going to do really, really well if they can provide the metrics that Decentraland needs, or even the general NFT space. We can go through different they've also got some really good metrics on just number of estate listings at the current moment, number of lands under 10k mana, which is 0 now, but before they used to be something. So maybe they need to update this to number of parcel listings under 15k mana. But this is really, really cool. We'll go through this a little bit too. So yeah, let's get started. Let's get started. Where can we start? All right, the cheapest lands right now are currently at 11.5k, which is interesting because there were around 11 to 12k, the cheapest lands back before the last competition results gave land away. So the last competition of the builder contest was using the SDK kit, and I think from memory a couple hundred lands, or at least 100 lands, were kind of given to developers that did really good, and a lot of those lands were put back into the marketplace. So that kind of brought prices down a little bit to about 10k. So over the last 3 to 4 weeks, we've seen a lot of between 10 to 12k mana sales, and in fact, literally in the last 24 hours, we've seen someone, this buyer over here, pick up all the lands under 11k. So there was about 4 or 5, maybe 6 of them, and they were all purchased under 11k. So now there really isn't any land under 11.5k. In fact, this is my land that I listed a while ago, which has now become the cheapest land. So the cheapest land is around 11.5 to 12k. A couple of lands, if they're bought up, it becomes 12k. If this whole page, which is 12 lands, gets bought up, then we can bring it to 13k, and 15k I don't think is very far away either. Yep, just about 2 pages, and we're up to 15k minimum for land, which is very, very interesting because, you know, there used to be 10 pages to go till we're up to 15k mana lands, but now there's literally just 2 pages. So it shows that, you know, as land gets bought up, this I kind of see it as like a large order book. I'm not sure if you guys watch crypto trading or you day trade, but you can kind of see the order books, right? And you can kind of tell where there's thinning in the order books, where the momentum's going. But you can kind of see it as, in this particular case of Decentraland, as lands get bought up, then suddenly it becomes easier to bump the price up, just because there's not much liquidity. I mean, it only takes 2 parcels to be bought up. My God, I don't know why I keep saying brought. But it only takes 2 parcels to sell to get it to 12k, and maybe another 20 to take it to 15k, which is a pretty big jump, right? 12k to 15k is almost 50% jump in price just from 20 lowest parcels being bought up. So that's interesting to note. It is very exciting to see that. Recent sales, all right. Recent sales, not so much exciting for the single parcels, but I do like to see this in terms of just to see the quadrants and the prices that lands are going for. You can see lands connected to roads. Still go for about between 16 to 18k mana. Not much has changed over my last update, which was last month. So that's still, I guess, the price for roads connected to lands. If you can get them for 17k ish, I think it's a pretty good buy. This land is actually connected or touching the corner of a road, but the interesting thing, or why this one sold for 24,000 mana as opposed to 16,000 mana, is because it lies in the inner west quadrant. So Decentraland is a massive map, as you can see. I'm only looking at a little bit over here. Each one of these pixels represents 16 by 16 square meters, and you can build all kinds of things. This is 32 continuous parcels, and once I click in and show you how big this actual area is, you'll be pretty amazed. But a single parcel does still hold value. Where am I? Yeah, but the northwest quadrant, so these are the inner quadrants, right? Minus 50 to 50 are usually considered the inner quadrants of Decentraland. So northwest, northeast, southeast, southwest. Northwest or southwest are the ones that have road networks. So any lands connected to any of these roads, whether here or in this quadrant, usually go for 25k, around 25k. In fact, it's actually quite rare to find it these days at 25k connected to a road this close. You could be all the way out here, which is where the lands go for about 17k if it's connected to a road. So that's why that land specifically, although it wasn't exactly connected to a road, it still held value because it was closer to the center. As we know, lands closer to the center sell for more. We also had these ones, which I picked up, and you'll find out a bit later. More single parcels. Single parcels, again, some of them you just saw some sales under 10k, and I think that actually had to do with the market and how mana was doing. You saw some at 8,000 mana. A lot of these were actually bids accepted under 10,000 mana. Under 10,000 mana, they got picked up pretty damn quick. Excuse me, I think there was 8,000 mana. I think there was a couple more 8,000 mana. 9,500. So yeah, in the last 7 days, because what happened, and this is where the question of how does the mana price correlate, and how can we compare, what happens in the crypto market and the land market. Is there a correlation between mana price spiking or Bitcoin dumping? Like, what actually happens to the land market? And I've noticed a few different things, and it's kind of played out the same multiple times. But basically, over the last couple of weeks, we've seen mana go up from 300 Satoshi to, especially this period over here, which is the last 2 weeks, we've seen land go up to even 380. Yesterday, it actually touched 414, I believe, Satoshi, which is quite a lot considering over the last almost 6 months, we've had very little progress and just been bouncing up and down here. So I think people over the last week have been thinking, ooh, maybe mana might break out. Let me cash out into mana so I can actually sell it. So a lot of people, they buy land and they hope to sell it within a week or two for a bit of profit. But once mana starts to go down and gets a bit of turbulence, people get scared and they want to sell once there's a bit of positive momentum. So when mana spikes really high or has some indication of going up, or even if mana has an indication of going down, both times we see some people in the land market sell their land cheaper because they want to cash out their mana, right? And I think that's what's happened for some of these sales, especially even for estates. I had this particular land, I had bid 350,000 mana for the last 7 days, I think. I had bid about 350,000. It wasn't moving, and as soon as the mana market started to hit 400 sats plus, the guy accepted my bid. So again, it's another example of people accepting bids and kind of selling cheaper than they usually would have when mana starts to move a little bit. The reason why I bought this, again, I'll go through a little bit of that later, but it is actually getting quite difficult to find estates of decent size that are decently priced and are in a good location. Estates in general still kind of sell for about 11k per parcel at the cheapest. You can see some of them go for that. 4 lands at 55k, I think that's about 12 and a half, maybe 13,000. Yeah, 13,000 mana a piece. Two lands connected to road sold for 25,000. That's actually pretty cheap. That's 12,500 a piece, both connected to road. Four lands over here connected to the inner quadrant, inner west quadrant that I went through before. This was about 31. Yeah, about 30,000 mana a piece. So that's actually a little bit more on the expensive side, just because it's the four lands connected as an estate, touching roads in the northwest quadrant, which is the inner northwest quadrant. So definitely lands are still holding volume, and the coolest thing is volume. Like, we are still seeing consistent sales. Like, this is just in the last 24 hours. We've seen, how much volume have we seen in the last 24 hours? We have seen, what? Is that real? 1.5 million mana in the last 24 hours. Can't be. 346, 400, 450, 470. Okay, I'm not sure if that's correct, but in the last 24 hours, we've seen quite a lot of volume, like over 500,000 mana volume just for estates. And for single parcels, we've seen, if you add this up as well, maybe another 100,000. So that's about 600,000 mana volume, which is great. I love to see in between 500,000 to a million mana volume every day for Decentraland. It's crazy to think that the volume is still keeping up. And that is a good conversation to bring us to this chart, which I continuously look at. This is Decentraland stats, mydcl.net/stats. And this is, it sucks I can't kind of put it the whole way through, because this middle spike that you see here was the land auction. And if I do that, it kind of just skews all the data and you can't really see anything. So I have to go before and after. But this is basically when the land marketplace went live after the auction, to when we had the September spike, when we had a lot of investment interest come in for the secondary market. Before that, we were only selling, a few parcels here, a few parcels there. Suddenly we had a spike, and since that spike, we've done really well to stay, to keep that consistency. Kind of, if I stretch this out all the way to the end, yeah, it has slowed down a little bit over the last year, but you got to remember, like, Bitcoin has taken the lead role in getting everyone's attention. Like, everyone's looking at Bitcoin, seeing what it's going to do. It's been going up to, it hit 14K USD, just maybe, I think 6 or 7 months ago. So everyone's watching Bitcoin. A lot of altcoins are suffering, and as a result, a lot of the NFT marketplaces are suffering. But it's great to see Decentraland keeping up with the sales volume to some degree. Obviously not as good as, previous to this, but we are still seeing 27 parcels sold a day, 48, 6, 1, 12, 23, 4, 22, 10. I'm not sure if this is including estates, but we're still seeing, parcels sold daily. It's a big deal to sell consistent daily volume for any NFT marketplace, let alone a land marketplace where the cheapest parcel is like more than one Ethereum, a couple of Ethereum, right? So that's that. OpenSea rankings, you can see Decentraland has taken, it used to be first for a very long time, and now it kind of flips in between. Crypto Voxels, I think they just released a district or something, so they've just spiked up in volume. Gods Unchained has taken the lead role. It's been like a month since they have released their marketplace, but over the last 7 days, you can see the change has been pretty significant. It's minus 64% over the last 7 days. Decentraland, Decentraland trades in Mana Coin. So Mana Coin has gone down from 10 cents, which it kind of stayed at for a very long time, to around 2.5 to 3 cents. All right, let's just say 2.5 cents. So it's kind of gone down about 4x. So the Ethereum equivalent to that isn't as good as it used to be. But we're still number 3 on the marketplace, and I'm pretty sure we're going to contend for 1 or 2 spots, the first and second spot in the next couple of weeks. Gods Unchained volume, a lot of this volume previously came from some of the really big sales. I think they had a couple of 230 Ethereum sales. They had 2 of those, one for 210 Ethereum, one for 230 Ethereum for their mythic cards, which was sold, but I don't think they'll be sold again anytime soon. So this kind of volume is going to dry down, I think, to closer to 400 Ethereum. And if Decentraland picks up, if the Mana Coin picks up a little bit, then we're suddenly going to start seeing number 1 position. But it's great to see Decentraland, even 2 years in, since the marketplace has gone live. And I mean, the beta access is not even public yet. right? There's not that many people that have gone in and checked out the world. We haven't even had, we're not even out there in the public, and to see consistent volume is pretty cool, right? Anyway, I wanted to go through some of an estate that I just purchased and why I did that. And I'm going to compare this estate prices and my investment strategy to. I'm just going to talk about my investment strategy. So for a while, as you can see, I have mostly estates. I've got estates, meaning parcels that are all connected. Parcels that are connected give you more height. One parcel, just to see the difference, if you just have a single parcel, I believe the build height is about 20 meters. If you have this many parcels, which is 87 pieces, all touching each other, I believe the build height is about 120 meters. Okay, let's just say 100 meters conservatively. That's almost 5 times the build height volume of a single parcel. So there definitely is a lot of value for estates. Obviously you can build bigger, you can have more interactivity. If you really make use of the height, you can build multiple levels for any game that you're doing, split it up and rent it to big game developers and all that kind of stuff. So I've gone ahead and sold all of my single parcels pretty much, and I had a lot. I had about 300 single parcels all sold now, and I only have a few estates. So this whole thing is one estate. I just haven't joined them together. This one is one estate, and I have one Dragon City estate here, 55 pieces. This is about 87. So my play with Decentraland now, before it was a lot about single parcels and kind of making and turning a profit, so I can really build my stack up to a considerable size. So I have a lot of mana to play with once the world is going to launch, and it's kind of going according to plan, because once the world is getting closer to launch, which we are now, we're going to start to see bigger companies get involved, right? Especially when we can kind of see everything coming together. You can see with the smart items contest, some people have built stadiums, some people have built some really nice snow games and some really beautiful worlds. In fact, some cities, and these are 30 parcels big. And it doesn't look that big just here, but if you actually click into it, all right, there might be a lot of lag here. So I apologize because my Mac just cannot keep up with this, but all right, there's a lot of delay and lag, but I can assure you in-game it's actually really fluid. It's just because I'm recording right now. Look how big this world is, right? This is 30 parcels. This is 30 parcels large, and there's just so much to do. We're exploring like this whole, whatever you just saw, when it was zoomed out, like we are in the build now, and you can see how big this area is. Okay, that's only 30 big, which one was it? It was about this piece here, right? That's when you zoom in, it's that big. So you can imagine someone that has around 100 parcels, which is 3 times that size, which is what I have over here, around about that, or even something monstrous as this. But this is 243 parcels big, which is about 9 times or 8 times what you just saw there. So when bigger companies want to get involved and want to build really good, they have the funding, the experience, and the resources to build big projects, big games, or a really big kind of racetrack, or whatever they want to do and monetize it in the NFT space, then there's not much choice. There's only a handful of large estates. There's this one, there's now this one, there's this one that isn't really well laid out. Maybe a few others that they can buy. There's plenty of others that are not for sale. Like for example, this one's a massive one. There's a couple here that's smaller, but in terms of 100 pieces of land, there's really like 3 or 4 that are for sale that you can buy. I think there's this one here that's about 50 plus, 52 plus this one. So 65 over here. Another 60 over there, so I think there's about 50 piece over here, which is Bitcoin pies, and this one over here, which is about 55 land. So there's a lot of 50 pieces, but when it comes to around 100 pieces plus, there's really not that much of a place. So my strategy has always been to start to get larger estates, so 50 plus, ideally 100 plus, which is what I slowly work towards over here. I bought this for 735,000 mana originally, and when I first bought it, it was only this big. So it was a square piece around this double road. And then I had to buy all of these additionally, and these two, then these three, then this I bought recently when my bid got accepted, and this one last week from Cash Chris. Got a really good deal on it originally, but then I came and bought it too. So now I've gotten really lucky and had I've kind of joined all these together. It's kind of ready to be rented out to a good developer who can do something good with it. It's got a nice double road viewing point. So this one's just empty land that people can walk up and down. It neighbors, it touches Dragon Kingdom and the Battleground. And I've seen a lot of activity happen in the Battleground. I feel like a lot of games are going to be deployed there. So it's got some really good neighboring districts. All of this land used to be another district which has been dissolved, so this is going to go for auction. So this is going to bring some activity, not to mention it's really in the center of a lot of tech kind of business districts. The Crypto Valley, which is supposed to be more of a the Silicon Valley type thing where you can kind of pitch your idea, or some kind of a business quarter district. So it's in a good spot. So the reason why I bought this is either to rent it out or kind of sell it to a larger developer. Because now is a time where Decentraland is starting to really show the capability of the platform. The builder has improved significantly since its first release, which were very static items. Now it has a lot more you can do there, and now they might introduce changing colors of items. They've introduced you can change the scale of items. They might even relax on the poly, the build limits, so you can actually have more intricate designs. You might start seeing more NFTs that you can start to integrate with, and as the capability increases and this world goes public and people start to use it and share it on social media and it starts to get attention. I do know already there are some really big game developers that are building on here. We already know there's Chain Breakers, there is Battle Races, there is a few others that haven't been launched or mentioned yet, but are definitely working on something to release on Decentraland, and there's definitely going to be some larger developers coming in to build something. So that's my play been from the start. So when it comes to the land marketplace, I think it's going to be less about the single parcel and more about having a good quality estate. The only problem is you have to wait a long time till someone with a really big sized pocket comes up and says, hey, I do have a few million mana ready to spend. What do you have to offer? Right? Those kind of investors don't come around often, so you'll be holding and waiting for a long time. But when they do come, you can cash out big time, or make some really good money. Anyway, guys, that's it. Oh wait, is that it? No. So we have a little bit more actually. I wanted to go through this cool bot that a guy called Sai has hooked me up with. I'm going to put a link to his channel below, but basically this bot notifies me every time an NFT is released or is for sale that matches the parameters that I've set it to notify me at. So there's a few different rules that I've got. I've got add rule, DCL, number of parcels to road is less than 1. So basically all lands connected to road. I've added another rule for Gods Unchained, rarity is legendary diamond under 12 Ethereum. So any legendary diamonds that are under 12 Ethereum. And another rule of all chimeras that are under 3.5 Ethereum. And it's pretty cool. It kind of notifies me every time those parameters are met in the same Discord conversation. So, I get notified about the chimeras, I get notified about the land, I get notified about the card, the diamond legendaries that are listed under 12 Ethereum. It's actually really, really intricate and really good. And if you're really big on NFTs, I'm into this full time. For the last 2 years, I've literally just been trading land, and now Gods Unchained cards as well. Then this is kind of a must-have. And lastly, definitely not least, is this really cool project, Metalith. Really good project, has gained a lot of publicity. In fact, they've had a couple of press releases or some attention from Nifty Report, Sludge Feed, Barry Silbert. They've invested in this. Fantastic to see businesses being built on top of Decentraland. So basically, Metalith is a tool to see some macro data on land. So they're kind of evaluating land and kind of providing a land price index. You can see that weekly, monthly, quarterly. The really cool thing you can do here as well is kind of break it up into zones. So if you want the center zone of Decentraland, or if you want to see the the top three quadrants, you can see that this has a lot more a higher index price than this zone, or definitely higher than this one, right? So you can see the different quadrants, and just from a click of the button you can kind of get an overview of what the land prices are. Not so much what the land prices are, but what the land value is. You can do parcels, you can do estates, you can do parcels and estates. There's a really nice graph over here that goes through the volume, so sales volume on a weekly basis. I think you can break it down into monthly. So land volume in a monthly basis, you can definitely see some sort of a downward trend over here. We're in December, so I think we're going to have more. We still have a couple of weeks till the end of December, so it should either level out with the November or be a little bit higher. But it's good to see this sort of data. It gives us an indication as to the momentum and where it's going. One really cool page it has is market metrics, which I think has a lot of potential if they start to include more of this stuff. So it kind of gives you an overview of number of parcels under 10k mana, currently at 0. But if they put number of parcels under 15k mana, it's going to give us, it'll continue to give us a value here. So, it'll tell us 24, and if we check it 2 weeks later, it could say 15. And if they graph this out, then you can tell us on a day-to-day value, or a day-to-day basis, the trend and whether it's going down and what's a good time to buy. If you're seeing lands being picked up under 15k on a consistent decline, then you know that they're gonna eventually be 0 and the land's gonna be higher. Number of parcel listings, number of estate listings, again, these in graph forms would be amazing just to see the scarcity value. But it is definitely cool to see this sort of macro level analysis website coming in to Decentraland, and hopefully all of NFT space, because it is needed. It is needed for a project to come in and build some sort of data platform, so we can at first glance understand, especially for NFT traders that do this very frequently, it is important to see the big picture of the momentum that particular projects are moving towards. Because even though there may be a lot of development, we need to see how the land, the marketplace is doing, the active marketplace. You don't want to be investing in something that has a stagnant marketplace, doesn't have consistent volume, and is struggling to have a couple of Ethereum spent on the platform every day. Because those are the ones that eventually fizzle out to 0, and then your money's stuck and you really can't sell your items for anything. So that's it, guys. A big picture on Decentraland land. I've gone through quite a lot of things, so I apologize for the big video, but hopefully there's a lot of value there, and I'll see you guys in another land analysis video, hopefully next week, or maybe the week after that. But anyway, if I don't see you before then or talk to you before then, have a great Christmas and New Year. I will see you soon.